How to make an easy and efficient trade farm in Minecraft. These are the resources you will need for this farm. Now this farm is super easy to build and will get you a ton of useful materials. So anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so the first step to this farm is of course to find yourself a pillager outpost. Now once you've found yourself one of these outposts, you will have to head up here and of course kill any of the remaining pillagers. Alright, so now that you've killed all the pillagers at the outpost, you're now ready to start building the farm. Now if you don't know, a raid farm like this consists of two different farms. Firstly, a farm that will give you the bad omen potions that will allow you to start a raid, and the second part of the farm is of course the main farm, which will be above the outpost where the raids will start, and of course where the raiders are killed automatically and their items are dropped into a storage system. And this is of course the main part of the farm which you want to have. So we're firstly going to start building the part of the farm that's going to give you the bad omen potions. Now to do that, you will have to head to the top part of one of these towers, and then you're going to have to find where the pillager spawn point is. Now the easiest way to do that is simply to go to the top of this staircase, then count 2 blocks to the right, 1, 2, break out this block and replace it with something, that way you know where this spawn point is. So anyways, parts of this block is where the pillagers are going to be spawning on. Now the second step to figuring out where the rest of the pillagers will spawn is to grab yourself an empty locator map, open it, and now you will see a map with of course your character. Now your character is a white little dot that for me is in top right corner, and as you can see, when I move, that character also moves. Now some important things to know is that pillagers will spawn on the northwestern part of a block, meaning if we have the block right here, they will spawn on the northwestern part of this block. Now if I open a map, when my character looks upwards on the map, that is obviously north. When I look to the left, that is obviously west, south, and of course east. This means that if I look this way, pillagers will spawn this way and to the left, so they will spawn in this corner of the block right here, which is pretty much when my character looks north and then to the left, which is right here. So anyways, now that I figured out which part of this block is the northwestern corner, what you will have to do now is place yourself out a temporary block on top of the first block you placed, which is the original spawning block. Then you will have to place a glass pane on top of this block, and then you will have to place yourself another glass pane going west of this glass pane, which of course is this way. Then you will also have to place one going north, which of course is this way, and then of course one going northwest, which is right between these two. So now you should have a little square right here, and now you can destroy this temporary block you placed right here. And what should happen now is that whenever a pillager spawns on the spawning block, they should end up spawning within this little glass room, and this glass room is of course here to test out to make 100% sure that we have built this in the correct location. So anyways, what you can do now to make sure this 100% works is to go roughly 30 blocks away from this room, which for me should be just above these trees right here. And now you can simply stand over here and wait a minute, and as you can see based on the background, after a couple of seconds some pillagers should spawn. And if you now head back here, if they happen to spawn within this glass chamber, you have done this correctly. So anyways, what you can do now is simply kill this guy and then continue on the farm. So anyways, what you will have to do now is place yourself 3 blocks behind right here, then place yourself a staircase to the left of this block and of course to the right on this side, then place yourself another block going out from these 2 staircases, and then you can of course destroy these 4 glass panes. However, just make sure you remember that the northwestern part of this block right here is where the pillagers will spawn. You can of course mark out the 3 other blocks around it if you want to, like this. So anyways, from the block we have on top right here, build yourself 1 more block going forward, then build yourself 1 block to the left, and then going from this block right here, build yourself 4 blocks to the left again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you should have something that looks like this. And also to briefly say, you can also build this out of glass. So if you for example want to have the front out of glass, you can also do that. So anyways, what you will have to do now is expand all this by 1 more block going upwards, and then you will have to place yourself a glass block right here, and this glass block should be right above the block where the pillagers spawn. And again, make sure this is placed in the correct location, and this should pretty much be 1 block above where the pillagers will spawn. So anyways, what you will have to do now is destroy this block going 1 down right here, and now you should obviously end up going into the floor under. And then once you have done that, waterlock these 2 staircases. Now the water should flow towards this hole right here, but they should not end up in a corner right here. However, if water goes into the corner like this, that is probably because you did not break a hole right here. It's very important that you break this hole out firstly, and then of course place a block in the corner and then destroy it. So anyways, once you have done this, cover in the corner right here with 2 blocks, and then simply jump into the room under right here, place yourself out a chest, with then of course a hopper going into that chest. We will now have to head back up and place yet another hopper going into the hopper again. That way, if we jump into this water, we will just be pushed towards this corner. And of course, to say, you can of course move this chest 1 higher up, like this. And this chest right here is pretty much where all the bad ominous potions are going to appear. However, this chest is going to fill up pretty quickly with of course other things like crossbows, so I would recommend you have way more chests. So I would also recommend you add yourself 2 double chests right here with then more hoppers going into those chests. That way you will have plenty of space and make sure that nothing will despawn. But anyways, now head back up here again, because what we need to do now is start on some redstone. Because what we're going to need to build now is a 1-piston Trident killer that will of course be killing all the pillagers that will be spawning on top of this block and then fall into this room by the water. Now to do that, you're going to have to place yourself a temporary block going out from this block right here, then place a piston on top of that block, then you can of course destroy the temporary block, and then you will have to throw yourself a trident in front of that piston. Then you will also have to build yourself a roof above this farm, and I would recommend you do this out of glass. And to briefly say, you will have to build these 4 blocks you have right here out of glass or leaves or a block that mobs cannot spawn on. So anyways, now that you have done that, you now need to head to the other side of what you have built so far. I'm just going to destroy this pillar temporarily to have some more space, and we're now going to need to place yourself out some redstone. So firstly, we need to place yourself out a block going out from the piston, then place yourself a block right here, and then another block right here. So if I, for example, were to change up these blocks, you should have blocks in kind of a V shape like this. Then you will also have to destroy the block we have right here. Then the first step to this is to place yourself a redstone repeater looking into the block that's right to the left of our piston. Then place yourself another block right here with the redstone dust on top of it, and then the redstone torch on top of this block right here. And once you've done that, the piston should now be pushed back and forth, as you can see. However, if that is not happening, then you probably built some of this incorrectly, so simply just pause the video right here and make sure you built everything correctly. But anyways, what you can do now to temporarily turn this off is to place yourself a lever on top of this block right here, simply flick that on, and now this will stop. And to briefly show you how this works, if I turn this on again and then let's say spawn some pillagers inside of here, they will be pushed by the water down here, and they will of course then be killed by the Trident killer. And alright, so once you've done this, you're done with the first part of the farm, which is of course the part of the farm that's going to give you the bad omen potions that's then going to allow you to start the raids. So anyways, what we're going to do now is start on the part of the farm where the raids are going to happen and where of course the raiders are going to be killed. Now to briefly say, you can actually build this part of the farm anywhere. So if you want to build this part of the farm right above your base or anywhere else in the world, that is of course completely fine. However, to start the raids, you will have to head back over here and use the farm you have right here to get the bad omen potions. But anyways, now that you know that, let's get started on the farm. Now if you don't know the mechanics of how raids works, I would recommend you simply just build this like how I'm going to build this right above here, just to make sure that everything works. However, if you want to build this part of your farm in an industrial area or somewhere else in the world, let me know down below and I will reply to you with some tips and tricks on how to make it work. So anyways, the first thing we will have to do is locate the middle block of this roof. Now we have 5 blocks on each of the sides, meaning if we just go 4 blocks towards the middle, we will end up reaching the middle block. So you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, then this right here should be the middle block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and boom, we have now confirmed that this is the middle block. So anyways, from the middle block right there, you will have to go yourself 30 blocks upwards. Now you can build yourself up out of any block. I'm going to use scaffolding simply because it is nice to be able to just climb upwards, or if you want to destroy this later, then it's quite easy to destroy. However, if you want to, you can also just build yourself up using, for example, solid blocks. But anyways, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 27, 28, 29, 30. So anyways, once you've gotten to the top right there, you will now have to build yourself a small platform. So anyways, simply just stand on top of the pillar you just built going up, and then you will just have to choose any side. Look that way, look to the left, build yourself 1 block going forward, look to the left again, build 2 blocks going out, then to the left once more, then 2 blocks going out right here. And then you will of course have to fill out this to make a small platform, pretty much like this. And then once you've done this, we will now need to get started on the Trident killer, which is going to be on this side right here. So anyways, firstly place yourself 4 blocks in front of the platform you have built so far, then build 3 blocks going out from both the corners, and then link up this in the middle. So now you should have a 4x4 block room with a 2x2 hole in the middle. So anyways, what we're going to need to do now is build ourselves a Trident killer on top of these blocks. So firstly place yourself a piston on the top left-hand part of this kind of 2x2 square, then go to the left side of the piston and place yourself a redstone torch on the left side of that piston. While looking at the redstone torch from the front side, place yourself an observer, and now this little face should be looking towards the redstone torch. Then always head back here, rotate yourself to the left, place another piston right here, redstone torch to the left of the piston, look at that redstone torch, place yourself an observer, and then just continue this step. And then finally one final piston, redstone torch, and then an observer. Then to make sure this works, and of course to turn this Trident killer on and off, place yourself a lever on top of one of these pistons, flick it on once, and now this should go around once, flick it off again, and now this should be going around constantly, as you can see. So anyways, now you can just temporarily turn this off again. So anyways, once you've done this, you will now of course have to cover in this room with a 2x2 floor, like this, and then you will have to climb down under what you have built so far, and then you will simply have to expand the walls going around there by 1 more block going downwards, pretty much like this. And then once you've done this, you will have to place yourself a temporary block under right here. Then going from here, build yourself 2 hoppers towards you, then 2 hoppers going into those hoppers again. Then you will simply have to head to one of these sides, break out these 2 blocks, and then place yourself a railing on top of one of these hoppers with then a hopper minecart on top of the railing. Then you can of course destroy that railing if you want to, then do this a second time on the opposite corner, pretty much like this. And to briefly say, I have added 2 hopper minecarts right here. However, you can just have 1 if you want to, or you can have 4. However, just to make sure that nothing gets clogged up, I would recommend you have at least 2. So anyways, once you have added 2 hopper minecarts within there, you can can of course cover this back up again. So anyways, what we will have to do now is obviously add a dropper system that's going to be dropping the items that we will be getting from this farm into a storage system. Now to briefly state, you can build a storage system anywhere. A lot of people tend to have it up next to their farm, and I have even done this a couple of times. However, I have found that that can cause some problems with, for example, raiders spawning on top of the storage system. So generally speaking, just make sure that this farm cannot break. I would recommend building the storage system down here. And the way we're going to do that is by adding, for example, chests down here with then hoppers going into the chest from the back, and then simply break ourselves up here to the top. Now that may have sounded a bit weird, but I'm going to explain it a bit better now. So as you can see, we have the hoppers going this way, meaning the items are going to be dropped out this side. So what you will have to do is figure out where you want the items dropped down, which I would ideally recommend is down here, simply because that is the easiest to build. So what I'm going to do is place myself out 5 double chests right here, and this is pretty much going to be in front of the wall we have right here, simply as this is perfect because we can have hoppers going into these chests from the back. And then you can of course add more chests going upwards if you want to, which I would also recommend because 1 or 2 raids is going to fill up 1 chest. But of course this can be a beginner store system. So anyways, once you've done this, simply run yourself a line of hoppers above all of these hoppers going to the end. This means that any items that fall into this hopper from the dropper will firstly go into this chest. Once this chest is full, they will then be sent in this chest, and then this chest, then this chest, and of course then this chest. So anyways, what you will have to do once you build this between these 2 blocks we have at the bottom right there, simply stand on the first hopper, look straight upwards, and then break yourself upwards, and all you should need to break out is 1 piece of log and maybe 1 fence. And now once you've done this, simply just go straight up. And from the block right here, you should pretty much end up 1 block in front of the farm, pretty much like this. So anyways, what you will have to do now is place safe a temporary block to the left of the first block you placed, place safe a dropper going out from the block, and now you should pretty much be standing right in front of that dropper. And if I now were to, for example, fall it down, I should end up on top of this hopper. However, if you, for example, build this farm so far 1 block too much to this side, this might not happen, but what you can do is of course just make this dropper 1 block further forward. So anyways, now you can destroy these 2 temporary blocks you placed behind there, and what you will have to do now is place yourself a hopper going into the side of this dropper, and then another hopper going into the first hopper. So now all the hoppers you have right here should link up with this dropper. So anyways, what you will need to do now is obviously build a system that will be constantly ticking on and off, allowing the items to be dropped out of this dropper. So to do that, simply place yourself a temporary block right behind this dropper, with then an observer right here, destroy a temporary block, and now place yourself another observer right here while looking at the first observer, and now the little redstone eye you have right here should be flicking on and off, and you should also be hearing a constant dropping sound from this dropper. Now if I, for example, place some redstone into this dropper, as you can see, they dropped quite far out, and that will obviously not work. However, we do have a fix for that. Now to fix the droppers shooting the items quite far away, simply place yourself a staircase upside down right in front of this dropper. And now if I drop, for example, 20 redstone into this dropper, they will fall straight down instead, and as you can see, they will now fall towards the first hopper we have right here. Alright, so now they are done with this, we just have 2 more steps, and the first one is of course to build a room for the raiders to spawn in, and of course get ourselves a villager up here, that way a raid can actually start. So anyways, what you will have to do now is build yourself 19 blocks up from each of these pistons and observers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
A few moments later.
And you can of course build this out of any block. Now I'm going to choose solid blocks, and then I'm going to have some glass in front, simply because it is nice to watch the raiders actually die. So anyways, now we can head back to the top right here, and now we will have to choose 2 of the sides to build a platform on. So what I mean by that is that you're going to have to select 2 of these sides, then build 7 blocks out of. So if you, for example, choose this side and that side, you're going to have to build 7 blocks out right here pretty much. Now which side you decide on really doesn't matter, just choose 2 sides. Now since we have the front side of the farm right here, I'm simply going to choose this side and then this side. So since I choose that side and that side, what I'm going to have to do is simply just head over here and then build myself out 7 blocks from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I'm going to have to do the same right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm simply going to have to link up these 2 pillars with each other. And once I've linked up these 2 pillars, you're now going to have to fill in this area with solid blocks. And make sure these are solid blocks that mobs can spawn on, so not glass or leaves. And boom, once you've done that, you're now going to need to build yourself a wall all around this farm. So simply head into one of the corners right here, place a temporary block going upwards, build yourself 1 block going outwards, destroy a temporary block, and then build yourself a wall all around the outer part of this farm. And boom, once you've done that, expand this wall to be 7 blocks taller. This means that you should end up with a wall that's 8 blocks tall all around the farm. So anyways, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so what you will have to do now is place yourself a layer of leaves right above the 8 block tall wall you just built. And this is of course to spawn proof these blocks to make sure no raiders spawn on top of them. So anyways, what you will need to do now is head into this room, and we're now going to need to place ourselves some lava right there, that way we can easily kill the ravagers. So what we will have to do firstly is place ourselves a sign 3 blocks going up from the wall right here. So 1, 2, 3, place yourself a sign right here, then place yourself 3 more signs going out from this sign. So 1, 2, 3, then place yourself a second row of 3 signs. So 1, 2, 3, then 2 signs, 1, 2, then 1 final sign right here. And now you should be able to place a lava source in the corner right here without the lava flowing over. So the lava will flow all the way to the end, but it will not flow over the signs. Pretty much like that. And of course the Ravager have a small chance of falling into the Trident killer, and if they do fall into the Trident killer, they will not really be killed down there unless you turn it on and off. So to make 100% sure that no Ravagers accidentally break the farm by falling down there, you're also going to place yourself out a cobblestone wall or any kind of wall block right here. And this can of course be any of these wall blocks right here. So anyways, once you've done that, you will now have to turn around, and in the opposite corner of where you place the lava, which are these two corners, you will have to fill in a bunch of water. So firstly head into this corner right here and then place yourself water until you get almost to the other side. However, make sure you don't place water on the two end blocks. So place water until you get here, but do not place any water on these two blocks right here. Then do the same on this side, so place water until you're 2 blocks away from the other side, pretty much like this, but no water in these corners right here. So anyways, what you will have to do now is place yourself a block in the corner right here, and then place yourself one last water source on top of that block. Now if you jump anywhere into the water right here, I'm not touching my keyboard, I will be pushed towards the Trident killer. So anyways, now this room is pretty much done, so all you have to do now is go down there and then throw yourself out a trident into this room, and make sure you throw this on one of the pistons or of course onto the ground. And alright guys, now that you have done that, we really just have 2 more steps, and one of them is really simple. Now the first one is to get yourself a villager close to this farm, because we will obviously need a villager and a bed for raids to actually start. So anyways, what you will have to do now is head pretty much under where you have the farm right there, right next to the pillar where the mobs will fall down on, and then you will have to count 7 blocks from under this spawning platform. So pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then on the 7th block, which for me is right here, place yourself out 2 temporary blocks. Then place yourself a bed on top of these 2 temporary blocks. You can now destroy those 2 blocks. And then right above this bed, you will have to place yourself out 2 leaves. Then place yourself out 2 leaves right here, 2 leaves in the front, and 2 leaves on the side. That way you have a 1x1 room that's 2 blocks tall right here. So anyways, what you will have to do now is get yourself a villager up here. Now this can be a bit of an annoying step, however it really will not be that difficult. So what I would recommend you do is either just bring it up here using, for example, a nether portal, a railway system, or for example just using a bubble elevator. But anyway, since I'm in creative, of course, I'm just gonna spawn one in, and after you've spawned it in, make sure the villager picks up the bed, which you can see based on some green particles. Now again, to mention, the easiest for you to do if you have a village nearby is probably just to build yourself a little railway system pushing the villager up here. But anyways, once I've gotten a villager up here, simply just cover it up on top with a leaf, and now we just have one last step, and that is to spawn proof any area where raiders might be able to spawn on. Now if you go back down to the bottom of the farm right here, raiders may for example be able to spawn on these blocks, so just cover these up in leaves. And then finally you will also have to cover up the roof of this pillar outpost in leaves, or of course glass or a block that mobs cannot spawn on. And boom, now that I have covered up this roof in leaves, the farm is finally ready to be used. So what you will have to do first is head down into this room, and we should, yeah, as you can see based on the XP, we will actually have killed a couple pillagers, meaning we should actually have gotten a couple bad omens potions while we have been building this farm, which of course is pretty nice. So what you can do now is simply just grab some of these potions, head back up here, and then start using the farm. Now before we start using the farm, I'm going to give you a quick tip that can increase the amount of resources you get from this farm by quite a lot. If you get yourself looting 3 on a sword and turn on the Trident killer while holding this sword, as in you flick the lever on while holding the sword, the looting 3 effect on the sword will actually be given to the Trident, meaning you will have a chance of getting up to 2 or 3 times the amount of resources from this farm. And you can of course do the same with the bad omens farm we have down here. But anyways, to use the farm, simply head up here, turn on the Trident killer, and then drink yourself a bad omen potion. And now once you've done that, a raid should start, and you can see that it started based on the little raid bar on the top of the screen. And now if you wait for this bar to reach the end, raiders will spawn. So if you just wait any moment now, they should spawn. There we go. You can also hear it by that sound effect, and soon raiders will fall into this room and be killed by the Trident killer, of course. And if we look off to the side, you can see that whatever they are dropping will of course be pushed down or fall downwards. And you will of course be collecting the XP through this piston, meaning this is also kind of a semi-XP farm. I can also quickly jump into creative mode, fly up here to show you how this works. So the raiders spawn within this room any second now, and they're then of course pushed towards this middle room right here, where they will then fall into the Trident killer. And they will then of course be killed down here. Alright, so with this last raider, I believe this should be the last guy before the first raid we have done finally ends. So mobs remaining 0, and we have finally gotten the raid victory bar, meaning the first raid has been completed. Now to briefly say, before you drink a new potion, you will have to wait before the raid victory bar at the top is gone before you can drink a new potion and start a new raid. Now that bar will only really be there for about 30 seconds, meaning you will have to wait 30 seconds before the first raid ends before you can start a new one. But if we now go back down here, before we check the resources we got from this actual raid, we can also check the chest chest. And yeah, as you can see, we have gotten even a couple more potions, which means that we can start quite a few more raids from just doing one raid. But yeah, anyways, now let's check the main thing people want, which is probably what this farming gave me. Now from this one raid, we were given a total of 5 totems of undying. Now we were also given 2 books, which has impaling 4 I mean, density 4, power 4 and efficiency 4, which is a pretty good book. We were also given 30 emeralds and then finally 28 redstone dust, which is actually pretty nice. And now that the victory bar is gone, we can actually jump back up here, drink a new potion and then start a new raid.
A few moments later.
Alright guys, so as you can see, the second raid just finished. But if I now go back into creative, we can now jump down there and we can check out these chests. So yeah, we have gotten 1 full chest of items, we have gotten 2.5 stacks of totems, just about 1 stack of redstone and quite a few books, and we have even more totems. So we didn't get that many this raid, however we do have the original 5 plus 2, so we've gotten a total of 7 totems. We do also have, we actually have more totems in the second chest, meaning we got a total of 5 totems from this raid, with the 2 we have at the bottom and 3 in that chest, meaning we actually got a total of 10 totems from these 2 raids. So anyways guys, that is it for this one. So yeah, thanks so much for watching and hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions about how this farm works or anything like that, feel free to leave them down below and I'll try to answer your questions as quickly as possible. So anyways, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.